Converging paths. 6 months later, Maya stood at the edge of Millhaven Harbor, watching the November sunset paint the sky in dramatic streaks of orange and purple. The air had turned crisp with the approach of winter, but she barely noticed the cold as she waited for Elijah's research vessel to return. So much had changed since that fateful July morning when she'd missed her train. After spending 3 unexpected days in Millhaven, days filled with deeper conversations, walks along the coast, and nights spent in Elijah's arms, Maya had reluctantly returned to San Francisco to fulfill her professional obligations, but something had fundamentally shifted inside her. The long-distance relationship that followed was challenging but revealing. Weekend visits became precious islands of connection in their otherwise separate lives. Their professional worlds, which had seemed so different at first, began to show surprising points of intersection. Maya wrapped her scarf tighter as she spotted Elijah's boat on the horizon. Her phone chimed with an email notification. Final confirmation of her transfer to the Coastal Research Institute's new West Coast branch, conveniently located just 40 minutes from Millhaven. The position had emerged unexpectedly from a collaboration that began when Maya, inspired by Elijah's community-based approach, had invited him to co-author a paper on integrating local ecological knowledge with scientific watershed management. Their work had caught the attention of the Institute, leading to a joint grant and eventually to Maya's new position, one that would allow her to continue her research while building connections with coastal communities. She smiled as she thought about how neatly things had fallen into place, as though the universe had been waiting for her to step off her predetermined path to reveal new possibilities.
The harmony of second chances. 3 weeks passed. Maya declined the position in international communications, despite Priya's insistence that she was being stubborn. "He's trying to help," her sister argued over breakfast in their small apartment. "Or salve his conscience," Maya countered, pouring more coffee. "Either way, I won't be a project for a privileged man having a moment of self-awareness." Priya rolled her eyes. "From what you've told me, it sounds like more than that." Maya couldn't deny the truth in her sister's words. Since the dinner with Yumiko, Alexander had begun stopping by during her shifts, bringing coffee and asking questions about Japanese phrases. Their conversations had evolved from awkward to engaging, with an undercurrent of attraction neither acknowledged openly. That evening, Maya arrived at work to find the executive floor unusually busy. Conference rooms were filled with people speaking rapid Japanese. "The Nakamura delegation is here for final negotiations," explained Tony from security. "Big contract, apparently." Maya nodded and began her usual routine, trying to work around the activity. She was cleaning the break room when raised voices caught her attention. Through the glass wall, she saw Alexander and several Japanese executives in what appeared to be a tense discussion. Their body language spoke of miscommunication and growing frustration. Without thinking, Maya set down her cleaning supplies and approached the conference room. She knocked gently and opened the door. "Excuse me," she said in English, then switched to Japanese. "I couldn't help but notice some difficulty. May I be of assistance?" The Japanese executives looked startled, then relieved when Maya continued in perfect Japanese. Alexander stared at her with mingled surprise and gratitude. "There seems to be a translation issue with the contract terms," she explained to Alexander after speaking with the senior executive. "The interpreter has misunderstood a key phrase about intellectual property rights." What followed was 2 hours of Maya facilitating communication, navigating cultural subtleties that the hired interpreter had missed. By midnight, the previously tense executives were smiling, contracts were signed, and Alexander was looking at Maya with undisguised admiration. As the delegation departed, Alexander touched Maya's elbow gently. "You just saved a $50 million deal," he said quietly. Why are you still refusing the communications position? Maya sighed. Because I don't want to be given opportunities out of guilt or attraction. What about merit? He challenged. What happened tonight had nothing to do with my feelings for you and everything to do with your exceptional skills. Your feelings? Maya echoed, her heart skipping. Alexander ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as nervousness. I think you know I'm attracted to you, but that's not why I offered you the position. Before she could respond, his phone rang. It was Yumiko, calling from the hospital. She'd fallen and fractured her hip. I have to go, Alexander said, visibly shaken. She has no one else here. I'll come with you, Maya offered without hesitation. She might be more comfortable with someone who speaks Japanese. At the hospital, they found Yumiko pale but alert. Her face brightened at the sight of Maya. My dear, she said in Japanese, how kind of you to come. While Alexander spoke with doctors, Maya sat with Yumiko, translating medical information and providing comfort. As the night deepened, Alexander watched their interaction from the doorway, struck by how naturally Maya had stepped into their lives, filling spaces he hadn't known were empty. Near dawn, with Yumiko finally asleep, they found themselves in the quiet hospital cafeteria. She'll need help during recovery, Alexander said, his exhaustion evident. I can hire a nurse, but she responds to you in a way she doesn't with others. Maya wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I could visit her. It wouldn't be a burden. Alexander looked at her with such intensity that Maya had to glance away. Why did you really turn down the position? He asked softly. I considered deflecting, then decided on honesty. Because I was afraid. Of what? Of depending on someone else's goodwill, of stepping back into a world I'd left behind, of, she hesitated, of the way I feel when I'm with you. Alexander reached across the table, his hand covering hers. I was afraid too, of admitting I'd been wrong, of acknowledging that someone I'd once dismissed could become so important to me. Their eyes held, the barriers between them finally falling away. I've resubmitted the position as an open application, Alexander said. No special treatment. If you want it, you'll interview like anyone else. Maya smiled slightly. And if I get it, then you'll have earned it. His thumb traced circles on her palm. And I'll ask you to dinner, not as a janitor or an employee, but as a woman I'm falling in love with. Maya's breath caught. That's quite presumptuous. I'm working on that, he admitted with a rueful smile. Too many years of entitlement. It needs work, she agreed, but turned her hand to intertwine her fingers with his. 1 month later, Maya sat across from the HR director and a panel of executives, answering questions about international communication strategies. Alexander was notably absent, having recused himself from the hiring process. That evening, she found him waiting in the lobby. Well, he asked, his expression carefully neutral. I start next Monday, she replied, unable to contain her smile, as communications liaison for the Asian markets. Alexander's face broke into a grin. Congratulations! You deserve it! I know, Maya said with newfound confidence. Now, I believe you mentioned dinner. As they walked out together, Maya reflected on the strange twists of fate that had led them here, from invisibility to recognition, from judgment to understanding, from separate worlds to a shared journey. Behind them, Yumiko watched from her wheelchair where she'd been coincidentally passing through the lobby. She smiled knowingly as her grandson held the door open for Maya, their bodies gravitating towards each other with the natural harmony of two people discovering that sometimes second chances come in the most unexpected forms. Outside, the setting sun painted the city in shades of possibility as Maya and Alexander stepped forward together into a future neither had imagined
but both now embraced. A future built not on assumptions or appearances, but on the profound understanding that comes when we truly see each other for who we are.
The weight of autumn leaves. The Seattle skyline emerged through morning fog as Emma drove across the bridge, May secure in her car seat. 3 suitcases contained the essentials of their life, leaving the cottage furnished but vacant. She'd written separate letters to both men, asking for the space to make this journey alone. Her old apartment building looked smaller somehow, less imposing than in her memory. Emma parked in her designated space, still available despite her months away. The doorman's surprise quickly melted into warm congratulations at the sight of May. Emma didn't go to her old home, not yet. Instead, she directed the elevator to the 15th floor, where glass doors displayed Chin and Associates architecture. Heads turned as she walked through the office, May strapped against her chest. Some faces registered shock, others awkward sympathy. Emma moved past them all until she reached the corner office, where Nathan's name adorned the door. He looked up from his drafting table, disbelief washing over his features. "Emma, we need to talk," she said simply. They settled in the office's sitting area, May asleep against Emma's chest. Through the windows, autumn leaves drifted down from trees lining the avenue below. "I'm not coming home," Emma began, watching him absorb the blow. "Not to our old life, our old patterns." Nathan nodded slowly, grief etching into his features. "But," she continued, "I am staying in Seattle. I've accepted the associate professor position at the university, the one I turned down when we decided to start a family." "I don't understand," Nathan said, hope and confusion warring in his voice. Emma shifted May to her other arm. "What happened between us broke something fundamental, Nathan. Trust isn't rebuilt with apologies or baby furniture. It's rebuilt with time and consistent actions." "You're giving me that time?" The question held fragile optimism. "I'm giving us both time," Emma clarified. "I've leased an apartment near campus. I'll be bringing May to daycare 3 days a week while I teach. You can see her as often as you want. Be the father she deserves." "And us? Is there any chance for us?" Emma reached across the space between them, touching his hand lightly. "I don't know. That's the honest answer. These months away gave me something I'd lost, myself. The woman who arrived in Whispering Cove was defined by her heartbreak. The woman sitting before you is defined by her choices." Nathan's thumb brushed over her knuckles. "What about Julian? He loves you. I saw it every time he looked at you." The question surprised her. "How did you know I'd choose Seattle over him?" "I didn't. But I know you, Emma. You wouldn't be here unless you'd made a definitive choice." Emma smiled sadly. "Julian offered something beautiful. A fresh start, a simple life by the sea, but running toward him would be another form of running away." "From what?" "From the harder path. From seeing if what broke can be remade into something stronger." She paused, looking down at their sleeping daughter. "I called Julian this morning. He understood, and that way he always does." A tear slipped down Nathan's cheek. "I don't deserve this chance." "This isn't about deserving," Emma replied. "It's about choosing the future that feels right for me, for May. Right now, that future includes you in some capacity. What that looks like depends on both of us." That evening, Emma stood in her new apartment, smaller than their luxury condo, but flooded with afternoon light. She brought the sunflowers, her first independent purchase after leaving, and placed them in the window where they caught the fading sunlight. Nathan had helped carry her suitcases, then left with a promise to return tomorrow with lunch and without expectations. The weight of their complicated history hung between them, neither fully resolved nor abandoned. As darkness fell, Emma opened the gift Julian had pressed into her hands during their goodbye, a leather-bound journal with a note inside. "For recording new chapters, your story isn't finished. It's just taking an unexpected turn. Always your friend, Jay." Beside it, she placed Nathan's offering, a small wooden sculpture of a mother and child carved during sleepless nights of regret. May stirred in her bassinet, her tiny hands reaching skyward. Emma lifted her daughter, breathing in her perfect newborn scent. "We're home,"
she whispered, uncertain if she meant this apartment, this city, or this new version of herself, a woman who had walked through fire and emerged not unscathed, but unquestionably stronger. Outside, autumn leaves continued their descent, carried by winds of change, each one finding its own path to the ground below. Emma watched them fall, no longer afraid of where she might land.